called for a Blue Ribbon Commission, and as a first step, we're meeting on the 29th. We'll get you invitations in the back. Thank you.
Okay, so we currently have 18 patrol cars, and council just voted for staff to go ahead with the purchase of the Southern California Edison streetlights, which will be able to mount ALPRs on. Especially along our western border, we need to definitely work on that. We have ALPRs placed other parts in the city, but we need to secure the Eastview section. As your councilman, I will do everything in my power to make sure that our first responders have everything they need to be successful. I will work with my colleagues on the council to make sure that we have that we maintain priority one security. I think that as part of my youth, I want to basically. I've seen it done before. We can use social media groups. There's, for example, a group called Bay Cities Crime Watch on Facebook, where residents basically band together and they all post their little Ring doorbell cameras. Hey, watch out for this guy. We need to find methods that won't cost the city any money, but can still help us out.
John, you're on.
Okay, very good. So thank you. I definitely am supporting the ALPR cameras on Western Avenue. We need to make sure that those get implemented as soon as possible. Also, I know the city wanted the HOAs to take the burden of having these security systems, but I think the city should really take the lead and try to have a citywide system of entry and exits where we have high definition cameras to be able to pick up criminals coming in and out. Also, with social media, we have a heightened sense of crime in our city, even though statistically it's gone down. And because of that, there is a perception that we do need to do more. We need to work with the 5 surrounding cities with us. Certainly on Western Avenue, we need to work with LAPD. And that's the reason that I'm being supported by the Sheriff's Department, is because I want to be really tough on crime. Thank you.
All right, next question. Sorry, Chris.
Okay then, so I agree with a lot of the things that my fellow candidates have actually said, but a couple of the things that I think are really important is, one of the things to prevent crime is actually to prevent crime, right? So education-wise, I think we really need to do a better, not a better, but more around allowing residents to understand what they can do to protect themselves, in addition to working with our homeowners associations and taking advantage of the programs that are available through the city and exploring whether or not we can have more in relationship to that. I also think one of the things that I haven't seen much data on, we do have the ALPR cameras, and those are great, but how do we measure the effectiveness of them, and whether or not we actually have a wide enough network, and do we have enough cameras, and are they in the right places? Because if we can't measure how effective they are, then how do we know that they're actually working? So I think there's some things that we need to collect from data perspective.
Great, thank you. And candidates, Mr. Nelson over here, keep an eye on him. He'll give you a yellow card, 15 seconds, and then red card is cutoff time.
And we've got the Singapore plug. We know how to communicate with John.
Second question, and Ben, you're up first. This has to do with wildlife. We live in a complex environment here in Palos Verdes. We have peacocks, coyotes, and other natural environmental issues that are problems to some, but not to others. If elected, where do you stand in relation to how the city should approach these issues?
I elaborated on this in a previous forum before, but I think that in terms of the coyote problem that we've had here in Ottawa, there's especially a heightened sense that the coyote problem has become more problematic over the coming years because of technology and because of services like Nextdoor Press. I am concerned about the risks that it poses to our pets and stuff, and so I support what the city is doing currently with the wildlife plan that we have for addressing coyotes. I think that the number one thing that we should do is teach residents on how to coexist with the coyote populations, because we can't just relocate them. If we try that, we'll have to euthanize them. They're found in all 50 states except Hawaii, and so we have to learn to coexist with our local coyote population. I think that residents should look at the plan that the city has set forth right now, and it will teach you how to haze and how to make sure that they're not comfortable with human presence. And I think that's the first way we can address that. And if any coyotes are problematic, then we're going to have to talk to the sheriff and work on addressing that.
You know, it's a tough issue because coyotes are a natural species. They're native to California, whereas peacocks were imported. And so the city's program has been a little easier to implement on the peacocks than on the coyotes. But the coyote issue is growing. You talk to homeowners, you'll find that everybody that's got dogs, cats, small children are concerned about the coyote population growing, and as they get more accustomed to us, what's going to happen, and the dangers that they pose. So I think the city needs to do more than just monitoring and mapping incidents and whatnot. We're going to have to put a plan in place that looks at what we need to do to control the coyotes, and I'm out of time. Thank you.
Another 15 seconds.
All right. For peacocks, I think our plan's working pretty efficiently. I mean, it was a problem. That's why we had the plan, and it's been working. With the coyotes, I was at a council meeting recently where they discussed this as an agenda item. Councilwoman Brooks has come up with 5 different plans of attack. I personally, from attending every council meeting since I've become a candidate, I've noticed that the tenor is that we're frustrated with our animal control. LA County Animal Control has been a bit unresponsive. What I worry about is if the city doesn't take concerted effort and come up with a plan, residents will take it into their own hands, and I'm not entirely sure we would want that. But I mean, we need to definitely tackle the issue because you have people's pets getting killed, and I mean, no one wants to see a dead dog.
John?
Yes, thank you. So a few things. With the Peacock program right now, I believe it's working, but I think that every year it needs to be monitored correctly because you can't set a certain number and continue to just do that. We need to look at how much we need to relocate every year. In regards to the coyotes, certainly they're a territorial type of animal and you cannot relocate them. And so I believe we need to coexist with them, but I think we need to make sure that they're not unafraid of us, because right now they are unafraid of us. And so without a good hazing program and us standing up to the coyotes and letting them know that they have their boundaries, there's going to be difficulties. And I certainly don't want to wait till there being a bigger problem to have to do something more drastic. And finally, LA County used to have a spay and neuter program for our other animals, certainly feral cats and that. They've stopped doing that. And I think we want to look at that program as well because it made it a lot easier for us to be able to get our animals controlled and you didn't have a bunch of wildlife for the coyotes to feed on. Thank you.
Krista?
Thank you. So as far as the peacock issue in the city, I think that the trapping and the moving seems to have been effective in that area. The coyotes, on the other hand, are another animal altogether. And I think, you know, I actually had a chance to talk to a vet a couple days ago who was saying we shouldn't feed, we need to haze, we can't relocate, we've got a lot of federal and state rules that we have to abide by. But I think some of the things that we can take advantage of are the materials and the app that the city has created. I think that's actually very progressive
Animals
from that
have more
perspective.
rights
But
than
I
human
had, my
beings.
neighbor had lost a dog, and somebody came out to actually look at her yard and help her figure out what she could do to create safety in her own yard. So we could actually try to work with some of those areas and help people do what they need to do in relationship to protecting their pets.
Thank you for the question. I agree in terms of peacocks, living in a home close to peacocks. I certainly sympathize with those of you who have gone through that experience. But I do think the trapping is largely effective, and we need to continue to deal with those on a case-by-case basis. The existing coyote management plan speaks to hazing and coexistence, but it has become a major issue, particularly in the neighborhoods that many of us have walked through, and many of us have been affected by it. So I do think population management techniques such as the spaying and the neutering need to be considered. We need to continue to look to the expertise of the county. to help us figure out the right methods. The existing coyote management plan calls for the identification of very aggressive coyotes, but I just think that's very difficult in actual practicality to identify an aggressive coyote and then coordinate the pickup of that particular coyote. So more needs to be done. Our plan needs to be expanded. Thank you.
All right, next question. Dave, you're up first. This has to do with the City Hall site. We just convened a City Hall Master Plan Committee. And currently there's a lot of discussion in the community and debate ranging from whether we should remodel what we have with an eye towards preserving open space or go in the direction of a full service facility, which might include a new City Hall building, fire and ambulance services, sheriff's substation, and or assorted municipal recreational facilities. What are your current thoughts on what you believe the direction to be going forward at the City Hall site?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, I think we should set a very high bar for this concept of building a new City Hall. Some of you may have seen the PV People, Peninsula People magazine article where the city manager was talking about his next big project was the goal to bring modern heating and air conditioning to the city staff and new city council chambers. And so, you know, that project is probably going to cost us, I don't know, $40 million. And of course, anybody who's ever bought $1 million house knows that you pay about $2 million for that house before you finally own it. So that's the kind of indebtedness the city would be looking at. We've got a new Civic Center Study Committee. Noel Park is sitting in the front row. He's the vice chair of that committee, and I think he and my old colleague Bill Gerstner is going to do a good job of making some serious recommendations to us. But we have soil issues on that side, chromium contamination, and title issues. Thank you.
That way to Matthew.
Okay, so I would be more towards remodeling and preserving City Hall. As to council chambers, I feel like we have adequate council chambers. I would definitely be worried about potentially overextending ourselves and spending more money than we take in. We need to definitely keep an eye on debt. You can look around at other cities where debt has become an issue. I'm not entirely sure that we would want that for Rancho Palos Verdes, and I don't think it would be fiscally responsible.
John?
Yes. So I think at this point it's too early to opine because we do have a really great subcommittee that was just put together to help us look at the City Hall site. It's definitely not a city manager's project. It's a project for the residents of Rancho Palos Verdes, and it's up to our subcommittee and then our council to help make those correct decisions after getting the right input from all the people. My concern about City Hall, I want to make sure it's functional, it's efficient, it's safe, and it's, of course, code compliant. Right now, our city council chambers are separate from our City Hall, which I don't know how that lends to efficiencies. One final thought was, I think that sometimes we should think about moving city council meetings around the city and maybe have one or two on the east side of town as well, just to make sure we get good public input at all times. Thank you.
Krista?
Thank you. So I know that there was a survey that went out regarding City Hall, and we had a 17% response rate, which consultants would tell you was really great. Problem with that is 83% of the population didn't get a chance to actually opine on what they wanted for City Hall. I think for me, one of the things that we need to do a better job as a city is process and how we move through projects like this. There are a lot of unanswered questions in relationship to the land use, the titling. We don't have squared off land, and I also don't have enough information about what kind of remodeling could be done versus a new building. So I think the other thing is we don't have an idea of cost. So we can sit here and say we could have a new City Hall, but at what cost? And what do we give up as a community by spending money over there versus doing something else? So we can buy anything for any amount of money. So I would want more information.
Thank you. I also am looking forward to the recommendations of the subcommittee. I think we've got a group of very capable individuals who can offer some good insights into the direction that could possibly go. Community input is essential, certainly, in the future discussions of that possibility. One of the things I want to call out is that one of the options available to the city could be a public-private partnership. So that's something that I think the subcommittee should consider as they evaluate the possibility of a city hall in the future, of a civic center. And as to sort of re-note, I do think proximity breeds accountability, and therefore I do think it would be advantageous to have city staff and the sheriff's department working hand in hand and closely with one another. So to the extent that whether we stay in our existing facility or build a new one, I think we need to look for opportunities to provide space to the sheriff's department.
Yeah, so that's still going through committee right now, and so I'm very interested in to see what resident input has for that. So I'm not going to make any broad assumptions as to what the proposal is going to be like right now, but I know for a fact that I think that we should have emergency services on the Hill. I think that we should have a permanent station for our law enforcement on the Hill. I think that's necessary. Our emergency services have to drive around Golden Cove, our ambulance station, and it's lowering our response time. So I think that's a reasonable proposal, and I think that if it's not attached to the city hall, if it's in any number of ways, it should be something that should be discussed. Also, I think that our city hall is quite old. It is a converted army barrack. So I think that some creature comforts like air conditioning is not necessarily a bad thing for our staff. I think it will help them, and it will increase morale, and they can work harder for everybody in the city. But we need to look at the fiscal cost of this, and I think that I'm leaning more on the side of renovation right now.
Great, thank you. Next question. Matthew, you're first up on this. This deals with open space and parks. We've seen an enormous increase in park and open space usage in just the past few years, with the consequences now of overflow parking into neighborhoods, noise disturbances, traffic congestion.
Quality of life issues are very important up here on the Hill.
What are some of the ideas as to how you might approach the public's right to use the streets, parks, and open space, but protecting RPD residents' quiet enjoyment of their neighborhoods?
Thank you for the question. From what I've researched, I know that we instituted a parking permit plan up in Del Cerro. I feel like that's been adequate. One of the main things I feel is when it comes to parks and open space, we need to make sure that everybody has equal access, but safe access. Because it says in the general plan that the public's supposed to be able to have access to the coast. But what we can't have is a bunch of people going out and diving and getting in trouble, and then we have to call the Coast Guard helicopter in to fish them out. Parks and open space and ocean access, definitely something that I feel like everybody should be able to have, but we need to find the balance of security and privacy, and make sure that we put residents and their home and property values first.
John?
Yes, so regarding open space, obviously we've got a real jewel here on the peninsula. Our city has 1,400 plus acres that's maintained by the Palos Verdes Peninsula Land Conservancy. As a civil engineer and also a current planning commissioner, I know that when you have such great amenities and you open that up to the public, that there's going to be potential consequences such as traffic issues and safety issues and neighborhood disturbances. So I want to utilize my experience to work with the council and the staff to make sure that when these amenities are opened, that they're planned through and thought through before we do that. And then we want to monitor all of these to make sure that if an issue does arise, we can come up with solutions quickly to minimize our disturbances.
So we are very blessed and lucky to have as many parks and open space that we do have here. And I think that we want to make sure that we preserve that. But I am concerned about access because Rancho Palos Verdes has a significant number of parks on the peninsula that we are maintaining, through Rancho Palos Verdes. So I think with our parks, we need to have a balance between how you have access. I agree with Matthew, it should be equal access for people. However, I think we also want to make sure we're monitoring when people are going into the parks, how late they stay there, making sure that they're respectful, and that we've got a way to monitor how people are actually using the park so that they're not doing something inappropriate or loud or disruptive for the neighborhoods. So I think that we really want to take advantage of that and provide some education as well, because I met with one of the groups that was indicating that some of the parks and open space, the vegetation is being destroyed from people going where they're not supposed to. So.
Thank you. Wonderful question, and certainly an issue that needs to balance several interests. I believe in protecting those of us who have invested, and I also believe in the ability to enjoy our parks and open space, which we're so blessed to have in this community. I think that a lot of thoughtful planning needs to go into decisions to modify or enhance existing spaces in such a way that may attract additional people. We have to consider the environmental impact overall of decisions that we're making that may bring in folks from outside the community to enjoy it. So I think we do have a good example of where that collaboration has begun with the Ladera Linda discussions currently. So I point to that and some of the issues that they're working through collaboratively, such as parking, security, the impact of traffic in that area. All of those things have to be extremely thoughtful, really putting the priority on the impact to the neighborhood first.
So in terms of our open space right now,
Hey,
I
folks, I'll be
support
back.
the current parks general master plan. I hope the city council.
I am going to be opening back on my original account.
Utilizing
I've been
it, but they haven't
unblocked.
approved it yet,
Okay,
so
you can
hopefully I
do it.
can see that get approved soon.